Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about the topic of decision making in football. This presentation was developed by Professor Israel Teodo and me, Guilherme Machado. We are representing the Center of Research and Studies in Soccer, NUPEF, situated at the Federal University of Viçosa in Brazil. NUPEF is one of the leading centers that develops research in football in Brazil with international recognition. We have a website for those who want to visit and learn more about the service and products we have. The site will be available at the end of this presentation. Currently, the number of decision-making in a soccer match has been of wide interest to soccer practitioners, as the high cognitive demand of the game has direct and in some cases negative implications for players' performance. High demands for game reading and decision making lead to increased reaction time, increased physical fatigue, loss of technical quality, greater dehydration at play, loss of the performance, greater difficulty in recovering between matches, and in some cases, greater likelihood of injury. Therefore, the quality of decision making in football is an extremely important indicator of team success, especially in high pressure environments. Thus, the assessment and control of the decision making ability of soccer players is important to enhance their performance on the pitch. A difficulty encountered until recently was to obtain objective information regarding this ability. However, an online platform has recently been developed that allows objectively assessing this component. TactiCup is an online assessment platform that allows one to know objectively and assertively both game reading and decision-making skills. Based on real match situations and resorting to artificial intelligence, the player is assessed concerning the time he takes to read a play and make a decision for different situations within the game, which take place near or far from the ball. From the data obtained through TactiCup, coaches are able to learn his squad's real needs, with respect to their ability of reading the game and making decisions, and may therefore manage their training activities and intervention in a more individualized fashion, allowing time optimization and facilitating performance improvement of his players in the field. TactiCup can be useful to management staff as well, to assess the degree of players' understanding and reading of the game in their squad, from all age groups, and to check how training sessions are supporting a significant improvement of respect to players' tactical evolution. As for soccer schools, TactiCup allows generating and printing players' individual reports, as a means to provide objective information about the development of players' game reading and decision-making skills. Armed with this information, the coaching staff is able to support the qualification of the worker under development so as to control the activities and the interventions during the sessions in a more individualized and assertive fashion, to meet the real needs of the players with respect to their education and development. From the perspective of performance analysis, TactiCup provides easy and quick generation of individual and collective players' performance reports. Also, by acknowledging the limitations and possibilities with respect to players' game reading and decision making, analysts can design videos and provide information with greater emphasis on the aspects the players needs to improve, thus enabling higher effectiveness in their actions. Through the information generated by TactiCup, players are able to better acknowledge their potential, in addition to understanding the aspects they need to improve. Some pros and highlights of TactiCup are: objectivity. Obtain objective and scientifically verified data about all the important components related to your player's movement across the field. Time saving. Access reports immediately following the assessment through the platform and use right away according to your needs, be it training optimization or definition of strategies for the match. Performance tracking. Keep track of players' evolution over time by staying up to date on their limitations and potential. Performance enhancement. More assertive sessions that meet players' needs will allow them to develop faster and more solidly, thus improving their performance in training and matches. Custom reports. Generate individual collective reports according to your needs for planning sessions to enhance your players' performance. Optimization of training time. Get to know your players' potential and limitations regarding game reading and decision making, so as to better organize training dynamics and improve match performance. The results from TactiCap are displayed graphically, allowing the visualization of the player's complete profile with respect to his game reading and decision-making skills. Information are organized so as to enable the visual and quick extraction of information regarding the player's offensive and defensive actions near or far from the ball. The graphic is organized as follows. The left side displays the results regarding the defensive actions. The right side displays the results regarding the offensive actions. The upper side displays the results regarding the actions performed near the ball. The bottom part displays the results of actions performed far from the ball. Therefore, it's possible to interpret the graphical information through a subdivision in quadrants. The upper left quadrant displays the results of the defensive actions near the ball. The upper right quadrant displays the results of offensive actions near the ball. The left bottom quadrant displays the results of the defensive actions far from the ball. And the bottom right quadrant displays the results of the offensive actions far from the ball. Considering the results of the player in this figure, it's possible to observe that overall, he displays better game reading and decision-making skills in the offensive actions than in the defensive ones. He also exhibits greater ease in actions near the ball when compared to those far from the ball. In a more detailed interpretation of the results, it's possible to observe that this player has difficulties in offensive actions far from the ball, such as actions of movements behind the last line of defense, which is the tactical principle of mobility. And he also has difficulties in actions regarding the organization of the attacking line behind the ball line, thus allowing the team to play in a cohesive and balanced fashion across their longitudinal and transversal lines, which is the tactical principle of offensive unity. In this figure, the results of response time are displayed grouped according to each tactical principle in addition to the general, offensive, defensive, and overall index of a player. The results are organized according to the proximity of the actions of these principles, whereas those near the ball are located in the left side and those more distant in the right side. Also, the offensive principles are represented by the blue bars, while the defensive by the red ones. Therefore, from the visualization of this data, it's possible to observe that generally, such a player has the ability to respond more quickly in defensive rather than offensive actions. An example of offensive difficulty may be observed more clearly in the offensive actions in which the players assess and perform actions with the ball, be it progressing with the ball towards the goal or goal line, penetration, or even temporization, length and width with the ball. TactiCap collective results allow to examine the difference and similarities between athletes. This figure displays results regarding game reading and decision-making skills of 4 athletes from the same team, which play as defensive midfielders. Through these results, it's possible to verify, despite playing in the same position, these players display rather distinct profiles, which will certainly influence their functions and individual and collective performance in the field. Among these 4 athletes, we observe that players 1 and 3 display a more offensive profile, especially in situations near the ball, when compared to players 2 and 4. Hence, armed with this information, we have an indication that players 1 and 3 may be better at performing the role of defensive midfielders who participate more qualitatively at the offensive phase. In addition to assessing performance, it's possible to assess decision-making time. On the one hand, on the left side of this figure are the values of decision-making performance along with the blue bars. On the other hand, on the right side are the values of the decision-making time along with the black line. Therefore, it's possible to obtain more detailed information of each athlete when compared to their teammates. Through this figure, it's possible to verify, for instance, that players 6 and 7 display similar performance values for the principle of offensive coverage. However, with respect to response time, we observe that player 6 responds much faster to these game situations when compared to player 7. This information indicates that although player 7 is able to make correct decisions in these situations, he needs more time to read a situation and appropriately respond to it. Armed with this information, The coach staff may control more specifically and assertively the training tasks for the learning and development needs of the player. This line of reasoning can be used to any other players. Another way to visualize collective results is by displaying athletes' decision-making time and performance according to the tactical principle. Display information in such a way enables a more global idea on how the team is faring with respect to a collection of movements within the field, as well as obtaining more detailed information on how a given player is playing in comparison to his teammates. In this figure, it's possible to observe that the athletes within this team display, in general, better performance in the principle of offensive coverage, variation between 51 and 87 points, in comparison to the defensive principle of defensive coverage, variation from 19 and 74 points. In other words, this indicates that players display greater ease in actions of offensive support near the player in possession by generating passing lanes or space within the opponents. Defense for the player in possession to progress with the offensive coverage principle, rather than in actions of defensive support behind the back of the first defender, which is the defensive coverage. In regard to the decision-making time, it's possible to observe that overall, the players respond quickly to the actions of defensive coverage compared to the offensive coverage. This information allows obtaining an objective indication of the characteristics already developed by the athletes, thus backing the coach staff to plan their work in training for aspects that need to be developed, individually or collectively. Periodic assessment with TactiCup allows to keep track of the development of players' game reading and decision making. This figure displays the assessment of two players in three distinct moments over the year. Through these results, it's possible to verify that player 1 has two offensive skills already consolidated, indicated by the blue circles, as they maintain or slightly vary their performance over time. Also, it was possible to verify an evolution on the ability to provide offensive support to the player in possession by generating passing lanes or movements near the ball, which is the principle of offensive coverage. He also improved in movements behind the back of the last line of defense, generating more space to team's movement and or moving towards a more appropriate space to score the goal, which is the principle of mobility. As for player 2, it was also possible to observe two consolidated defensive skills, indicated by the blue circles, that are related to the player's capacity to balance his team defensive sector, which is the principle of defensive balance. We also perceived a stability in actions of protection of the goal, which is the principle of concentration. In addition, a decrease was observed in his capacity to provide offensive support to the player in possession, be it through the creation of passing lanes or through movements near the ball, which is the principle of offensive coverage. Armed with these results, it's possible to conclude that training has been effective for maintaining and consolidating performance related to some movements in the field, and on the other hand, may be used to foster activities and feedbacks that seek to improve the understanding of some movements in the field that still display instability of the game comprehension and consequently of performance within the field. From the assessments made through TactiCup, it's possible to ask the coach or the coach staff to also perform an assessment of the athlete's ability to read the game and make decisions. By comparing these results, it's possible to verify the congruence between the coach's point of view and the athlete's real capacity. For instance, this figure displays on the left side a graph that represents the player's current profile, and on the right side the coach's perception of these athletes regarding the same capacities. By analyzing these two graphs, one notes a divergence between the coach's vision and the athlete's game reading and decision-making skills with respect to some movements within the field, such as situation of direct opposition for the defender on the player in possession, which is the principle of delay. In this case, the coach judged that his athlete has difficulty in reading these situations of the game and making assertive decisions. However, the player possesses high capacity to read these situations and respond assertively. With this information, the coach can acknowledge the athlete's real potential to perform movements of this kind in the field, and therefore adjust his needs or guidance aiming to improve his player's performance, as his demands were underestimating the player's real capacities. The same type of assessment that was done for the delay principle can be performed for each of the 12 items in the graph. Thus, it's possible to verify the points of convergence and divergence between the code's perception and what the athlete really managed to accomplish. The results from TatiCup should be used during the training sessions to design exercise specifics to improve players' needs. One example that we are going to explain is about an exercise designed to develop supporting actions near the ball in the offensive phase, which is related to the tactical principle of offensive coverage. Furthermore, it will be related to actions of defensive support behind the back of the first defender, which is the defensive coverage principle. The configuration of the exercise will be a game of 2 versus 2 plus 4 outside floaters. The goal is that the team in possession of the ball, through the movement of each player, articulate actions in order to be able to pass it to the outside floaters in depth, which is on the opposite side. The team in possession will also be allowed to use the 2 outside floaters at the sides. When this is achieved, the same team remains in possession of the ball but reverses the direction of the game, trying to pass it to the outside floater of the opposite side. The focus for the dark team will be the development of offensive coverage actions, while the focus for the white team will be the development of defensive coverage actions. Thus, possession of ball starts with the dark team, without time pressure, whereas for the white team, in case of recovery of possession, they have 5 seconds to invert the ball to the opposite outside floater, in order to increase the propensity of alternation of possession so that the darkened team is on the attack. In order to give specific stimulus for the player's needs, the team composition and organization of interactions will be used for training enhancement considering the results of TatiCup. The characteristics of the first player of the dark team is described as follows. Considering the characteristics of the player 14, we observe that he has a low capacity of offensive coverage, but a good response time. Therefore, it's necessary to improve his decision-making capacity in this situation. Additionally, he has a good penetration index, which facilitates his actions of progression with the ball. To create an opposition appropriated to the capacities of player 14, his direct opponents must have characteristics that generate an adequate difficulty to him. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. Therefore, an appropriate opponent could be player 21, because he has a low index of defensive coverage, that is, he presents an adequate level of opposition in the actions of offensive coverage of player 14. Thus, this will allow both player 14 to develop his capacity for offensive coverage, while player 21 his capacity for defensive coverage. Additionally, player 21 has a good delay index, with an adequate level of direct opposition to player 14, who has high penetration rates. However, player 21 has a high response time in this situation, which can hamper his direct opposition actions. As player 14, his direct opponent, in addition to have a good penetration rate, also has a quick response time. It will generate a need for player 21 to respond quickly to these situations of direct opposition, for him to have defensive success. Therefore, it will be generating a training environment that allows to develop specifically what player 21 needs. The characteristics of the second player of the dark team will be described next. Considering the characteristics of the player 20, we observe that he has a low performance of offensive coverage but a good response time. Therefore, it's necessary to improve his decision-making capacity in this situation. Additionally, he has a low penetration index, which makes it difficult for him to progress with the ball. To create an opposition appropriated to the capacities of player 20, his direct opponent again must have characteristics that generate an adequate difficulty to him. Therefore, an appropriate opponent could be player 2, which has a low index of defensive coverage, that is, he has an adequate level of opposition in the actions of offensive coverage of player 20. This will allow both player 20 to develop his capacity for offensive coverage, while player 2 his capacity for defensive coverage. Additionally, player 2 has a low index of delay, with an adequate level of direct opposition to player 20, who also has low penetration index. After choosing the players of both teams, a similar process must be done with the outside floaters. The characteristics of these players must be in consonance with the goal of this activity. The option to allocate them cannot be random. It must be intentional, to potentialize the stimulus created to those players that are playing inside the pitch. Therefore, they will be players with high index of offensive coverage, so that they can perform well offensive support actions and facilitate the offensive coverage actions of players 14 and 20, due to the difficulty they already have in such movements. Players with such characteristics contribute to a good dynamic of the exercise to potentialize the stimulus aimed for those players at the center of the activity. However, as player 7 has a very high response time in offensive coverage actions, we can insert specific roles for him in the activity to assist his development. A role that can be inserted is that the game must be played one touch for all the players. This will generate time pressure on this player, making him have to respond more quickly during this activity, and can assist in a specific and assertive way in his learning need to qualify and optimize the training time. Here is the presentation of the table with the results of all players participating in this activity. It's possible to note how the decision time of player 7 is considerably higher compared to his teammates. Some professionals from Brazilian clubs that use the Touch Cup gave their opinion about the platform. The management staff from Vasco da Gama said the importance of Touch Cup to know better players' profile and also the importance of this assessment to keep track of players' evolution. The coach staff from Grêmio said that with the utilization of the assessment results for training purposes, it was possible to improve players' performance, which allowed a greater recognition of the work by the management staff. Furthermore, it was possible to improve process within training with the whole coaching staff, doing the more detailed training planning to foster player needs, use the individual and collective information provided by Touch Cup. The coaching staff from Red Bull Brasil also said about the importance of the Touch Cup results to improve training planning to be more assertive in the stimulus given to players to adjust the game strategy according to their squad's potential. The head coach of the Under-20 team from Red Bull Brasil tells of his experience with the use of Touch Cup. With Touch Cup, you start to understand a player at an individual level and start to work on the individual needs of each one. The Red Bull Brasil's Under-20 team was evaluated with Touch Cup and the results were used to design 2 months of training sessions, considering the individual needs of the players and the collective needs of the team. The results of these assessments indicated that one of the midfielders of the team had difficulty reading the game and making decisions in situations of approaching the player in possession of the ball to give offensive support through the creation of pass lines. One of the forwards of the team had difficulty reading the game and making decisions on movements in the back of the last line of defense. We are going to present a video showing the outcomes of the use of Touch Cup results to design the training sessions for 2 months and how it can improve players' performance in the matches. From these results of Tactic Up, the focus of individual work with these two athletes was to improve those aspects that they had difficulties. During the game presented at the video, it was observed exactly the performance of these movements on the field, in which the athletes 2 months before had difficulty in reading this type of situation and that consequently affected their decision-making capacity and their performance on the field. See what the head coach of the under-20 team from Red Bull Brazil said about it. In this move, some athletes who have difficulty in carrying out some actions related to good performance, they started doing them in competition because of the previous training sessions, designed to promote individual and collective improvements. Basically, the tests allow us to understand easily and objectively the potentialities and limitations of players regarding their tactical capacity. It allows us to be more assertive in our training sessions. We congratulate the high-level work carried out by this coach and we wish him even more success in his football career, since one of the objectives of Tactic Up is to provide coaches with information that allows them to know the real needs of their group of athletes in what they do, regarding the reading of the game and decision-making, and can thus direct their activities and interventions in the training sessions in a more individualized way, allowing them to optimize the training time and facilitating the gain of knowledge and performance of their players on the field. Now we are going to show a tutorial explaining how to create your account, how to do the online assessment, and how to access the results at Tactic Up online platform. So I'm going to show how to access the Tactic Up platform. You have to type tacticup.com.br and we will be redirected to this page, and then we have to click at login. In this page we're going to create the login, and in case you want to apply the test in other countries you can choose the language here. There are many other languages available. So to start the creation of the account we have to click here at sign up. You have to choose a username just like is in the example, no uppercase, and then choose the email. This email is important so you can reset your password in case you forget it, and then put the password as well. Retype this. That's it. It's very simple to create an account at Tactic Up. In the next step, you have to complete your profile with the fields marked with this red sign to be able to access your dashboard. So let's start doing this. Okay, the first thing we have to choose is our position. I will choose this. The primary foot as well. Right. The competitive level, you have to choose what best fits to you. So I'm going to choose this. The birth date. That's it. The username's already here, the email as well. So you have to go to this personal information. Put your then nickname as well. Gender, the phone number. Choose the country, Brazil, the city, and put the address. That's it. I've finished the address. And then you have to choose these two more informations here. If you have ever played any national team, you have to choose what best fits to you. And again, the type of competitions played. That's it. You also can choose a photo for your profile. I'm not going to do this now, so just going to click on save. Attention, are you sure that you want to update your profile? You just have to click on save, and that's it. The information is there. If you want to check this, you can just click this button and then click profile. So all have inserted will be here. Okay, now I'm going to click at go back. If you are a player and you want to start a new test, so you can click here at this button. There will appear the explanation about the procedures to start the test. So let's move on. Dear participants, you are about to start a new test. This test takes an average of 20 minutes. This time here is an average because it depends on the decision time of the player. So it can take a bit less, a bit more. Please reserve this time for the full test, as it must be completed once it has started. Let's click on next. You will be presented with 3 warm-up scenes so that you get used to the task. After the warm-up scenes, we will start the test. Next. Before each scene starts, a red dot will point to where the ball is. That is this red dot here. While a red circle will indicate where the player that you need to watch will be. That is this red circle here. Next. So after this black screen with the draws will appear this, so we can identify where the player is and where the ball is, and then a video sequence you will start. Next. After this video sequence, 4 figures will show up on the screen describing the watched player movementation through arrows. These arrows you can see in these figures. So the arrow doesn't represent the player's final position, only the direction of his movement. You will perceive that besides the arrows, there is also this description as well for each one of the figures. So let's move on. You must mark the best solution option for the play, answer as fast as possible. Tip: your score will be based on your answer and response time. Click on next. Let's begin the 3 warm-up scenes. Okay, if you understand the procedures and the explanation, you can click here, start warm-up scenes, or if you wanted to check the information again, you can just click on previous, that it will bring you back to the explanation. Okay, so let's start the warm-up scenes. So a countdown appears. The scene is being loaded. And then it starts. Okay, now you have to choose between these 4 options as quick as possible. I'll choose this. Again, the 4 options will appear. I'll choose that one. We will choose this. Okay, that's it. We have completed the warm-up scenes. If you have noticed, the watched player of these three scenes, they were in different situations. We have observed players with the ball, without the ball, near the ball, far from the ball, and in both the defensive and the offensive phase. So it's all the situations that will be shown in the actual tests. Now, if you want to start the test, you can click here at Begin Test, or if you have some doubts, you can click at Cancel and watch again the explanation and also the three warm-up scenes. So I will move on, clicking here at Begin Test. So before we actually start the test, we will appear this window here, and we have to confirm this information. Yeah, this information is okay. And then I will click in confirm. After finishing the test, this page will appear, and you just have to click at confirm here. We were redirected for this page. This is the dashboard page. Now you can see this card with the information of the test we just finished. Here you see the date it was finished. These are the general indexes. Here the general, the offensive, and the defensive. So in order to have access to the whole report, it's need to pay it before. You see we need to click in this button, and after we have paid, this button here will be in blue, so it means it is a red available to be seen. Okay, so I will show you how to do. Now it's needed to fill in all the required fields with this red sign here, and after doing that, the full report with the information about the performance of all the tactical index and also the decision making response will be available for you. So it's just need to fill it in and then click in confirm. You can perceive now that the full report is available because this button is in blue. So we'll show you how the results appear. Here in this part, the left side, we have the personal information about the player. Here you can see the general index, the general offensive and defensive. In this part, the offensive indexes, and in this part, the defensive index as well. Here you can see the values of the performance of the index, and in this part below, the decision time of this index of the player. So we have all this information presented for all of the indexes of the offensive phase, the defensive phase, and also the general index. So let's have a look at this figure. I have presented it earlier, how to read the information in this graph here, but I will just remember you. So the right part, we have the results of the offensive indexes, the left side, the defensive indexes, the superior part, the actions near the ball, and this part below, the actions far from the ball. So I can see from this player some of his strengths are the actions far from the ball of the defensive phase that are shown here. Okay, we can perceive this, and also the actions near the ball in the offensive phase. Okay, he performed well in this kind of actions. But some of the limitations of these players are related to the actions in the defensive phase near the ball, as we can see here, and also the offensive actions far from the ball, as you can see here in this quadrant. So it took less than 1 minute to read this information. It's very quick to extract this type of information to understand the strengths and the limitations of this player related to his performance. And this type of information we can use in the training sessions to improve the needs of the player and what is important for the team in relation to his characteristics. It's also possible to download this report. You just have to click here in download. This report is downloaded in PDF, I will show it, and it can be shown for the parents, for the manager, and show how the training are affecting the performance of the player, just as I have shown to you previously in that case with the under 20 team of the Red Bull. So let's see here. In the first part we have the personal information of the player, the information about the report. In sequence we have the all results that I just presented to you in the platform, so it's all here in this page, and we have also some explanation about the tactical assessment in soccer, the importance of this assessment as well, and we have also an explanation about the tactical principles that are being assessed with visual information explaining each one of them, and with an explanation about what these movementations means. So for both the offensive indexes and the defensive indexes, we also have this explanation to help the coach staff, the manager, the player to understand what means each one of these tactical indexes. In the last page of the report, we also have information about the advantages of this type of assessment that I have already presented to you at the beginning of the presentation, so I will not present it again. I just wanted to show you one more thing. I'm going back here to the platform, click go back. So after we have the report done, we can send it for the teams that are castrated in our platform. So we have to click here at send to, and then type the name of the club. Let's see. Okay, Barcelona. So if you're a player, you want to send these results for the Barcelona team, you just have to confirm here. I'm not going to do this. Just click close. I hope this tutorial have helped to understand how the platform works, and now I hope you are able to do your cadastre with the TouchCube, and so to use these results to improve the performance of your players and your team. For the development of the assessment methodology and the online platform used by TouchCube, many institutions collaborated. Initially, we have received a contribution from Europe through the ALBUM program. The Brazilian government also collaborated through the grants received by the institutions CNPq, FAPEMIG, CAPES, and SEBRAE. Furthermore, TouchCube was chosen among around 1,500 companies to develop its technology in the Brazilian Program for Innovative Companies, called SID. We want to thank these institutions for their contributions. More information about the indexes and principles evaluated at TouchCube is contained in this book that can be found at this link, or you can find this information in this article available at this link. You can find further information about TouchCube and the Center of Research and Studies in Soccer on the website, Instagram, or may contact by email if you have any queries. The author's contacts are also available. Thank you very much for your attention.